Hello everyone, and welcome to the Miss Pink Digital Podcast, home to everything digital marketing, brand building, and tech. And on today's episode, we are continuing our product feed optimization journey, and we're going to be talking about product descriptions. So if you haven't seen the previous podcast episode about product feed optimization and Google product feeds, well, not just Google, but just product feed in general, we already did one about product titles, and now we're moving on to product descriptions. So just to recap on what product feeds are essentially your way of getting the product information that is displayed on your website onto Google Shopping, Facebook ads, catalog ads, TikTok shop. Any of that requires a product feed, which is essentially the middleman that contains all of your information and then plugs into the necessary platforms that are needed for your products to show in your ads. So in Google's example, you have a product feed, which then sits on what's called Google Merchant Center, and Google Merchant Center then crawls through your products, approves, disapproves, all of that good stuff, and then fires them out, or you then connect it to your ad account, and then you can fire your product out in ads. So that's kind of what product feeds are. They're essentially a place full of your product information that then gets distributed out onto the ad platforms of your choosing. And within product feeds, there are certain things you can do to not only improve the visibility of your products, but also improve things like click-through rate and conversion rate, and overall make your ad activity more efficient through these optimizations. And like I say, today we're going to talk about product descriptions. And product descriptions are essentially, they are what they sound like. They are just the descriptions of your products that show underneath your product titles or show in conjunction with your product titles. So for instance, if you are on Google Shopping, you will see the product titles in the larger case or larger font, and then underneath you will see the descriptions. And this is your opportunity to really go to town on describing your product, describing its features, and really enticing users to click. And just like product titles, I'm popular today. Just like product titles, the more information you can provide in your product descriptions, the more likely you will improve your visibility on the likes of Google Search or Google Shopping, and the more likely you will cater your product to the right audience. And it goes without saying, the more you can cater your ad activity to your ideal audience and customer base, the more likely you will see improvements to your ads conversion rates, to your ads click-through rates, and you're going to get more bang for your buck. So let's just jump in to the world of product descriptions. It is as exciting as it sounds. So the good thing about product descriptions is it's actually pretty easy to optimize them. And same with titles, there's not too many technical elements. And as long as you kind of have these basic principles in place, you're pretty much good to go. So to start off, obvious one, describe only the product. I think when it comes to product descriptions, people can go a bit too creative with it, in the sense of course, use descriptive words, use really engaging copywriting. I'm not saying that at all, but make sure when you're, storytelling for your copywriting or incorporating storytelling elements, you go back to what the product is. Don't start describing anything else but the product. Reason being is, one, the user doesn't care. They want to know what the product is, how it can help them, and whether they should get it or not. And reason number two, you need to be showing both search engines and ad platforms, so social ad platforms as well, exactly what your product is and what you want it to show for. The more relevant your product descriptions are to the product, the easier it's going to be for the algorithms to figure out what your product is and who it needs to show for at what time. And you can kind of lean on them to do more of the work rather than you having to be more manual with your ad activity. So that's exactly why you need to make sure your product descriptions only describe the products, so you don't start generating queries from all over the place, but also you don't start generating low click-through rates, but also low quality clicks, because who wants to be wasting their money on clicks that don't convert or don't have the chance to convert? The next one is use professional language. So this one's kind of an obvious one, but I think even then, I still sometimes see product feeds and product feed descriptions that don't do this. So don't start using random symbols, random characters, emojis, over the top capitalization. This one I see all the time, especially with product titles more than descriptions, but where excessive capitalization is used. One, not only could this get your product disapproved because it's seen as spammy to specifically search engines, but also it's not professional looking. So keep language professional. The positives of this as well is it can help improve things like your conversion rates, because the more professional your language is and the more professional your listing looks, the more likely the user's going to trust you and your product. Now, again, I'm not saying you can't be creative with your copywriting, you can't be creative with your storytelling. Of course, you still can, and you can use these different techniques to engage the user and make them want to convert, but you can still put this across in a professional way. And then, of course, be as specific and accurate as possible. So going back to describing only the product, make sure you're not lying within your product descriptions. Seems like an obvious one, but people tend to emphasize things that aren't necessarily true or mold their product descriptions around things that aren't accurate about the product. Not only is this going to increase the likelihood of you getting higher returns if someone converts, it's also going to, I guess, inaccurate product descriptions to what the product is can also get you disapproved. On sites like Google Merchant Center, you can even get suspensions. So those of you who don't know what suspensions are, it's essentially when your products are no longer allowed to list on the likes of Google Shopping and displaying inaccurate listing/product information, whether that's through the titles, the descriptions, the images, prices, etc., actually does violate all of the platform's terms of service. So not just Google, but Facebook, TikTok. Accurate listing information is a very important policy that is in place for obvious reasons as well. Also, it doesn't make your business look great if you're lying about your product or you're being inaccurate with how you describe your product. So very important one there. When it comes to the contents of your product descriptions, you're allowed up to 5,000 characters. So a lot more than what you get within product titles for obvious reasons. The description is where you're describing more about the product. So obviously, you're going to get more flexibility when it comes to what you can put in there and how much you can put in there. Obviously, it does vary depending on the platforms, but the general average is 5,000 specifically for Google. But obviously, some platforms have more, some have less. So when it comes to these 5,000 characters that are available, it's important to use as many of those as possible to really make sure you're, one, really describing the product and putting it into full context for the user, but also feeding as much information into the algorithm as possible. Going back to my original point, the more information you can feed into the algorithms, the better your reach quality is going to be, the better your visibility is going to be, and all of the things you kind of want from product-focused ads. But just like titles, it's very important to front load/prioritize the most important information in the first 150 to 500 characters, and then utilize the remaining characters to talk about additional details relevant to the product. So whether that's relevant search terms, whether it's extra information about the product qualities, whether it's things focused around people's experiences with the products, any of that can be utilized in the remaining characters. Basic product description breakdown that I typically see recommended specifically through Google would be to have your brand, then your product title, then the product type, and that's when you then incorporate other product variant information followed by most relevant features. And it's in these final bits, like the most relevant features and variant information, is where you can start to also incorporate keywords and search queries to really help improve your visibility on ads or on search terms that are relevant to your product. So things like water repellent or waterproof is where you can start incorporating that into your product descriptions. One way to really identify what keywords / queries you should incorporate is through a keyword research. So have a look on the keyword planning tool within Google Ads. Start typing out features of your products or features that are relevant to your product or that your product has into that keyword planner and see what search queries come up and see how you can incorporate them into your product descriptions. Obviously, ideally, it would be good to incorporate keywords that are high search volume, low competition, but that's very hard to find these days. So even if it's just a case of looking for those lower volume keywords, but nonetheless, they still do have a relevance and they do still have that search query data behind them, despite having low competition, that's what you can start implementing there. One thing obviously to make sure is that you don't keyword stuff. And by that, I mean, don't start shoving loads and loads of keywords into your descriptions for the sake of it. Just put in meaningful ones that are relevant to your product and that help the product description read nicely. Similar to SEO, when you're writing SEO content, it's not so much about how many keywords you put in, but it's always about how the piece reads. And if you want to put more than 2 keywords within your product description and it still reads well, that is fine. It's when you start incorporating so many keywords that the description no longer reads well and no longer makes sense and negatively impacts the user's experience when they're reading it. So, like I said at the beginning, the product description is really your opportunity to go to town on highlighting core attributes about the product. It's basically where you can put everything you wanted to say in the title but couldn't fit it in. You can start putting it in the description. So any vital attributes about the product relevant to size, material, technical specs, shapes, pattern, textures, design, colors, you name it, that is your opportunity to incorporate into your description. Again, playing around with keywords and incorporating search queries, anything to improve your visibility around that, and just feed as much information to the user as possible. Now, when you're feeding a lot of inspiration, a lot of information into one area, it's important to format it well, not just from a search engine or advertising perspective, but also from a user experience perspective. A user is not going to read all 5,000 characters if it is just a block of text. Okay, so if it's a block of text with no spacing, no paragraphs, no punctuation, good luck getting someone to read all of that, because that's going to be so overwhelming for the user and it's just not going to really feed into their experience on your page. So formatting these 5,000 characters is going to be incredibly important. So using things like line breaks, italics, bolding out certain points of text without overdoing it. Obviously, again, we don't want to come across as spammy. Bullet points are huge because they allow you to structure your information in a way that's easy to read. You're more likely to get someone to read a full description if you have paragraphs formatted out and then key product selling points listed as bullet points. That's going to be a way to supply as much information as possible in a really digestible way, which essentially is the most important thing when it comes to displaying and advertising your product. You want important information also to be accessible at a quick glance. And that's where things like paragraphing, bolding out text, italics come into play. Essentially, think of it the same way as when you're writing content for a blog post on your website. You want key information to be easily distinguishable so that people can skim read if they want to. Anyone who's on a mobile device can easily read it on a mobile, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, in this day and age where people they don't have as much patience as what they used to, I guess. They are skim readers and they're going to want to find key pieces of information quickly. They're going to want to see what the product has. Does it help them? Will it help them? And should they buy it? All in a short space of time. And you might be thinking, well, then I can't fit all of that into 5,000 characters. You still can. It's all about how you format it. And things like breaking out your text, adding bullet points allow you to still describe the product as much as possible, but make it in a way that's easily digestible, catering to mobile device users, catering to skim readers, and just catering to people who don't have a lot of time and just kind of want to get the facts and get the information they need quickly. But yes, I hope that was helpful. Just a quick episode today, all about product descriptions. Again, we're going to make this into a series, or we have made it into a series, so expect more videos. Next few videos are going to be talking about images and how to use them and how to utilize video as well in that product listing or product feeds. And also then we're going to go into a bit more of the technical nitty-gritty stuff. So A lot more happening there, but I hope this episode was helpful and good luck in your feed optimization journey. And thank you for listening. Have a lovely day.